Hello and welcome to another video. In this one we're going to talk about a question that I get a lot, which is how do you develop on a Python package? And I already talked about this a little bit in the video on talks, which I will link in the description below, but I figured that this was worth its own video. So we're going to talk about the devenv feature of talks, and without further ado, let's jump into that. And today we're going to clone a package to work on. So that's kind of the first step that I use when I work on something. So git clone, github.com. We're just going to use PyUpgrade, which is a tool that I wrote. And we'll cd into that. And I always work inside of virtual environments. I think that virtual environments are really good for separating your concerns and making sure you don't have a bunch of random Python installations everywhere, or like weird system package interactions. And the way you might set up a development virtual environment is, run virtualenv and then, activate that virtualenv and then, figure out what packages you need to install and do something like, pip install -r requirements.txt and maybe pip install -e dot, and maybe you also need to, pip install requirements dev.txt, and maybe a bunch of other commands. But I find that that's kind of a pain in the butt, and I used to do this, and it was a lot of work, and I didn't really like that, so I decided to come up with a new solution for this using a tool that I was already using for my testing, which is talks. And for talks, it lists all of the dependencies that you need to run your application. It'll also install things from your setup.py or your setup.cfg or your pyproject.toml. And so talks already knows all of the things that you need to get up and go with your tests. And so I added a feature to talks called devenv. And the way you invoke this is talks-devenv, and you give it the output virtual environment directory that you want it to create. So in this case, devenv. And what talks will do is it'll look at your deps in your talks.ini and install those, and it'll also editable install your library. Now, editable install means that if you edit the code, it will be reflected immediately in what you're working on. You can get an editable install normally with pip install -e dot, which was this command here as I was babbling out commands up here. But yeah, you'll run talks-devenv. That'll create a venv right here, and you can activate that, and now you're ready to go. You can already start running your tests, so pytest tests, and yeah, it just kind of works. And if you look at pip freeze, you'll see pip freeze. You'll see that your library gets editable installed, and it installs everything in your deps thing here. So if we look at talks.ini, you'll see that my deps are -r requirements dev. There's also a separate environment down here for pre-commit, but it didn't install that. Now, sometimes with devenv, so devenv defaults to the Py development environment, which is whatever global version of Python you've installed talks to. In my case, that happens to be Python 3.8, but sometimes you might want to create a devenv virtualenv using a different version, or a different environment. You may want to pick a particular talks environment. So let me show you how you would do that. So you can use -e just as you would with talks. So let's say we want to make a Python 3.9 environment. devenv, so venv 3.9. I'm going to give it a different name so that it doesn't clobber the other one. And this -e will tell talks which environment to source the dependencies and the Python version from. And so once we source this environment, venv 3.9 bin activate, you'll see that the Python version is 3.9, and in this case, it's beta 5. You can also use -e to select a different environment. So in my talks.ini, I have the normal test dems, which are just these Py environments, and then I have a separate pre-commit environment. So if I wanted to do talks-e pre-commit -devenv pc venv pc or something like that, you'll see that it will create this separate pre-commit environment, and venv pc bin activate. You'll notice here that it didn't install my package because that's just how the pre-commit environment gets set up. But anyway, that's -devenv, and I actually recently learned a very sneaky thing about devenv, and this is entirely an accident. Git clean fx, let me just clean up my working directory. This is entirely by accident, but talks devenv actually works even if your library doesn't use talks at all. So let's just delete this toxin just to show you that it's not there. If we try and edit it, you'll see there's no tox here. Git grep tox, we listed in our CI stuff and our git ignore, but there is no tox directory here. If we run tox-devenv, you'll notice that it somehow realizes to create a development environment. And now in this case, it's just editable installing the library. It doesn't figure out the test dependencies. There's no like special magic there. But it does get you part of the way towards running your tests. So you can see here that it installed my library as well as my library's dependencies. I can't quite run pytest on the test though, but you're pretty quick to just go, pip install pytest and go from there. Pytest tests. So you can see it works. But anyway, that's tox-devenv. Hopefully you find this useful. This definitely changed the way that I do development, so maybe it will do the same for you. But thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.